What's happening, people? What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel with your boy CJ from the Gunner's Corner. Um, Now, we're doing a quick little video here, video clip upload to the channel with regards to Bukayo Saka. Okay. Now, it is a quiet news week. Now, generally, I know today being, what's today? The 24th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The 24th of February, and I'm still buzzing. I don't know about you guys. I'm still buzzing over our victory over one certain Tottenham Hotspur in the North London Derby. I mean, of course, we're all still giddy with that and buzzing with that win. Massive win for the Arsenal. But yeah, generally it is a quiet news week, right? We don't play until next Sunday against Chelsea, another London Derby, another one we're gonna have to overcome in our quest to obtain that Premier League title. But yeah, being a quiet news week, I mean, I wanted to come on here quickly and just chat with you guys a little bit and get your input about Bukayo Saka, and it's with regards to his new contract, right? Now this was announced, his new contract was announced last week off the back of the Arsenal Wolves draw, the disappointing draw at Molineux that we had. And the club announced this officially the next day. Now, one thing that Arsenal Football Club is good at doing is PR, and knowing when to sort of announce things or bring positivity in and around the club and to the fans after a period of disappointment on the pitch. We've seen that over the years. And sometimes they don't read the room very well, dropping new merch after losses or draws or poor results. Um, some would say this is in similar fashion. They waited for the right time. The PR move was brilliant, or maybe not so much in this case, when they announced the new contract for Bukayo, because again, it came off the back of the probably one of our worst results of the season against Wolves at Molineux in that 2-2 draw, and they announced the next day. And at the time, I was in no mood to talk about it. Um, and there's a lot of comments on the post at the time saying, read the room. No one wanted to really hear that at that moment in time and see that because, we're all still disappointed with the Wolves draw, which, wasn't that result stuck, right? Like the mood wasn't changed until after we won the North London Derby. There wasn't much that was going to be done before that to change the mood. And that includes announcing the contract signing of Bukayo Saka, which is unfair because um, Saka he deserves the plaudits and the praise and the glory and credit around the announcement of something like that, a new signing for one of our own, sorry, a new contract signing for one of our own. But again, I don't think he got the same sort of hype and feel around it because he that they dropped that at a time where we just got a disappointing result. Also, we didn't know what was happening for a while, right? We were hearing rumblings from credible journalists in the game that this was always going to be a matter of time and he was going to sign. But nonetheless, I am here to talk about it now in a better position, in a less emotional position, because we won the Derby and Saka played and he was a big part of that as well. So we're here to talk about it now. A couple things. I mean, first, again, just announcing the fact that we are overjoyed with this, right? Because this is one of our own, a guy who's been with us through the trenches, um, ever since Mikel Arteta came in, and even before that, under Unai Emery when he first broke through. Um, so we're delighted with that. He's our star man in attack, and the new contract is great, right? There's no doubt about it. Um, Now I just wanted to confirm um, a couple things with regards to the details of it. Now, Bukayo Saka's new contract with Arsenal it was suggested originally that it was a 5-year deal up to 2031. But Sami Mokbel, the BBC, who broke the news, very very credible journalist, especially in the Arsenal space, um, reports that it's more of a 5-season deal to 2030, as opposed to 5 years to 2031. It's more of a 5-season deal, bringing it to the end of or sorry, I think summer of 2030. Um, So let's just confirm what it says here. New 5-season deal, which is at this moment in time 4.5 years, to expire in the summer of 2030. So there you go. Um, Good news, right? Good news nonetheless. I mean, we've been waiting for this for a while. And in terms of the announcement, as I mentioned, and I think, if we're being honest, it's deserved. Now also keep in mind, just another quick thing for you. as Sami Mokbel reports, that Saka's new contract will make him Arsenal's best paid player on wages in excess of 300K a week. So I guess the question becomes, do you think he deserves that? And that's what I want to know from you folks. Right? He deserve that? Now let's go over some of some statistics, I guess, over the last couple years with regards to Saka. So there's no doubting his status obviously amongst the Premier League's elite. We know that. Um, Statistically speaking, though, since the start of 2021-2022 campaign, he has combined total of 92 goals and assists in 159 games. Only Mo Salah and Erling Haaland and Ali Watkins contributed more goal involvements in that time frame. Additionally, Saka has made obviously crucial contributions to Arsenal's title challenge in recent seasons, most notably in the 2023-24 campaign when he scored 20 goals and provided 16 assists in all comps, as the Gunners finished 2 points behind Man City. So those are actual raw facts and raw numbers for you. But anyone who's been involved with Arsenal over the years and been watching his rise and trajectory, again, the eye test also speaks for itself, right? It almost felt like over the years, um, he every time Arsenal scored or assisted, anything positive we did going forward was always through him and under him. His numbers speak for themselves. In basketball terms, they call it double double, right? It feels like he's always been getting sort of double digits in goals and assists. The double double. 10 plus goals and 10 plus assists season after season since he's came through at the age of what 17, 18. Um, he's been the sort of the shining light, even when we were down in the dumps in the transition between Emery, who brought him through, credit to Emery, brought him through, gave him his debut, all the way to Mikel Arteta's earlier years and when he was struggling. Saka was the one shining light, and he was the one boy at such a young age, and we call him Star Boy, right? He was the young guy at such a young age that carried us through difficulty, carried us through difficult times, eighth place finishes, losing in the Europa League to Villarreal, um, just poor results, especially in Arteta's early tenure. Um, Saka was the guy, and Saka still is the guy who's carried us now from sort of being in the mud in the eighth place years, um, all the way through now to being in the title race. Saka's been there, and he's one of the only, if I'm not mistaken, actual players in the side who technically would have a FA Cup success credit to his name because when Arteta won it back in 2020. Saka was on the bench. Funny enough, an unused sub, I believe, at the time, which is crazy to think now because, Saka on the bench in a cup final, whoever would have thought that, right? Um, but Saka's been there. That just goes to show how long Saka's been there or been here with us, and been through it all. And again, to come through at such a young age, obviously broke through with England. He's got a lot of experience to his name at still such a young age. I believe he's in his mid-20s now, Saka. Um, and so, he was pretty much tasked with carrying the club on his shoulders again at such a young age, which is crazy scary. Um, Off the back of, Aubameyang leaving and Lacazette and the big players, Ozil even was here at the time when Saka came through. So big players left and Saka had to carry the mantle as the main man. And I'd argue he still is the main man now, right? And so when you hear now that he's earning, such big wages, 300K a week plus, highest paid player in the club, probably one of the higher paid players in the Premier League now, is that deserved at this moment in time for him, right? There's no doubt the contract extension was deserved. Um, but are the numbers and the figures and the earnings justified? 300K plus a week for Saka, player in his mid 20s, hasn't won anything yet in terms of him carrying us to tangible success and big trophies. Does he deserve that? That's the question I want to know from you guys. And my thing is where I stand on Saka is, he's had, we've seen players albeit at the twilight end of their career, like Aubameyang, Ozil, get new contracts, big wages, 300 plus a week, 300 plus thousand a week. Um, and then, since signing the new contract, not deliver. It's kind of like that maybe it's a curse, and then obviously Mo Salah the same, at a different, albeit a different club altogether. But Salah just recently signed a new contract on big wages, and it hasn't delivered so far post signing that contract. Again, Aubameyang, Ozil, the same, but we're talking about those players who are 30 plus at the twilight end of their careers, and for one reason or another, it didn't work out after giving them all that money to re-sign. Saka is in his mid 20s with, his prime years ahead of him. Um, so hopefully the curse doesn't continue for us in that way, where you give that big franchise player 300K plus a week, and then he doesn't deliver. And what the concerns would be now are that the fact that ever since that injury that he sustained last season against Crystal Palace, December of last year, sorry, 2 years ago now, probably would have been December 2024 if I'm not mistaken. So basically last season, Saka suffered what was a serious hamstring injury. Um, and hasn't really performed to his level ever since. I think that's fair to say in terms of the numbers and in terms of eye tests. Some would say he's lost a yard of pace. He hasn't been playing the best. He hasn't, consistently causing that havoc and beating his fullback the way that he was pre-injury. Maybe he has lost that yard of pace or just doesn't have that same acceleration and speed. And again, up to your guys' interpretation, whether you guys feel that's true or not. Where I stand on it is, um, yeah, I'm not, first of all, first and foremost, again, I think that it's sad when a player like that picks up such a big injury, um, at that age, hamstring injury, that requires surgery, keeps you out for months. It's a shame, it's a shame. And I don't think he was solely at fault for that. I think the manager had a lot to do with that injury, right? And people may not like this, people who are, obviously super supportive of Mikel Arteta. I just want to be honest and tell it how it is, the way I see it from my lens. I think he's been overplayed, Saka. There's been plenty of times throughout the years since he broke through. We have to remember he came through again at 18, 19, 17 even, I think, was his debut, if I'm not mistaken. And you have to be careful with young players like that, playing too much football too early. We've seen the likes of Raheem Sterling, Wayne Rooney, who, these guys who break through at 16, 17 years old and play too much football by the time they're 30 years old, which is of no real age. They're already done in terms of their career because they've started so early and played so much football and so much mileage. Saka already has so much mileage for such a young age. Again, being the main man, that can take a big psychological toll as well as physical toll, I think we've needed to be more careful with him over the years. I think he's needed a lot more rest than he's gotten. I 110% think Mikel Arteta has overplayed Saka on numerous occasions throughout the last few years. There is no doubt about it in my mind. Obviously, we tried to rectify that this season by bringing in Noni Madueke, um, which has been helpful for us. But I think, yeah, he's been overplayed over the last few years, which I think is a massive part that has led to the big hamstring injury that he had last season that kept him out for months. Um, and it's sad, I think, because it looks like so far he hasn't returned back to the level of being the same player pre-injury, and some people are concerned that he may not get back to that level. I hope so. I really do hope so because he's such a good, humble young man, a good, talented player, has a great head on his shoulders and great mentality. And we were, when he came back last season, I mean, some people say he was rushed when he came back. But he came back because we were in the Champions League latter stages, right? Semifinals against Real Madrid, and he did play his part in that in both legs. And then we're so happy to have him back because we're seeing, okay, here's our star man. There's questions also outside of the injury, which I think maybe has halted his progression a little bit. There's question marks about, is he world class? Is he not? And he was just becoming to be on the cusp of, I think, leaving no room for doubt in terms of world class status because we had our strong Champions League campaign last year, which he would have been a big part of. The rhetoric for the longest time before we started qualifying for the Champions League was that Saka needed to do it in the Champions League. Now that we've been in the Champions League for the last couple of seasons, Saka has produced numbers in the Champions League. Again, he came back even last season after the injury and performed against Real Madrid, the biggest of the biggest clubs. It doesn't get any bigger than that. In press conferences, he was being called out and questioned, and maybe even compared to the likes of, Vinny and Mbappe and Rodrigo, that he was asked about that in press conferences and sort of saying or being asked about what does it take to get to their level. And he was kind of already thinking like, his thought process was that he feels like he's up close to that level, if not there already. And maybe he almost even took it as an insult. Um, Going back to that now that he was even questioned, about what it takes to get to that level. He will believe in himself and believe that he's already at the level. And I think he showed that in the Bernabeu second leg last season when he tried the Panenka penalty on Courtois and missed, which the likes of Carvajal didn't take too kindly to that sort of confidence. But yeah, I mean, again, outshone those guys in the Bernabeu, outshone those guys over the course of that tie. Um, against Real Madrid. You know, so I think it was the quarterfinals. Did I say semifinals? I think that Real Madrid tie was quarterfinals, wasn't it? But also scored in the semifinals against PSG in the Parc de France. So listen, man, we're talking about a guy who believes in himself, believes in his ability. He was, on the cusp of being sort of world class, if not world class already in those conversations. And again, I think, outperforming the forwards that Real Madrid have in that tie in the Champions League, that would do well for you being part of those conversations of world class. So I was happy that he came back and performed after that injury. We got him back in time to perform in the Champions League against the likes of Real Madrid. Um, and again, you want him to kick on even more. You're thinking, okay, yes, he's back. He's back to a level, scoring on the Bernabeu, scoring in the Parc de France against PSG, performing in the Champions League, just back in time from injury to play and to perform. But then again, a little bit of halted, or a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Just stunted growth further, going into the season because, to start, a few couple games in this season already, he had big time injuries that he had to contend with. Um, Another sort of, muscular injury, couple muscular injuries that kept him out for a few weeks. So it's been a bit stop start this season for him as well, and he hasn't really been able to get going. And again, I think being overplayed has played a big part in that for me. Being overplayed um, has really sort of, I think, put us in this position now where we need to be extra careful with him. Being overplayed over the years, that sort of mileage doesn't, you can't just reset, especially now after the operations that he got on the hamstring. Um, you know, some players may not return the same, they say. And in a player who plays in a position that he plays in, right? Wide right winger, you rely on pace, you rely on explosion, acceleration, change of tone and tempo. It's not easy. Um, you know, but again, we're still hoping for the best for him. We're still hoping for the best for him. And in my opinion, because of the credit in the bank and what he's done so far, he does deserve it. He has deserved the 300K plus a week, if that is to be believed, those reports about what he's earning. In my opinion, he's earned it. I think there's no doubt about that. Um, Now we're just putting hope and faith that, post injury, he comes back to a level. And we saw, I think, in the North London Derby, how well he played. Um, I think he was showing signs of being back to his best. Um, little glimpses, little combinations with Eze and Gyökeres. Um, and even prior to that, right, when he was playing sort of in the 10 role, he scored against Wolves in that game. Um, so again, he's a confident lad. He'll have no doubt, that he's going to get back to his best, and he'll have belief in himself. And I'm just hoping so. I'm just hoping that this contract is going to be worth it for him. I think he is still, if not already, he's still he's been on the cusp of world class for a few years, and his numbers um, will show that, right? And I think if post this injury, if he continues to recover properly, um, I think that he can still reach the level of world class where nobody is doubting him. Because one of the big things for me for world class is consistency and performing in big games and big levels. And again, over the years, his numbers have spoken for themselves on that consistency front. Performing in the Champions League now, his record against Big Six clubs in big games, certainly in the Premier League when he's scoring or assisting, that speaks for itself as well. He's always turning up, against the Big Six sides, and putting up numbers against, those sort of clubs in the bigger games, you know. Um, so yeah, I think if he can get us over the line now in terms of the big trophies, and that goes for a lot of players in our side, right? They're still sort of on the cusp of that recognition of world class because they don't have the trophies behind their name. The likes of Saliba, Gabriel, maybe even Declan Rice. Saliba's talked about it. He loves being in the conversation of best in the world, but he believes that he needs to win the trophies now to solidify that status. And I think it'll be the same with Saka. If Saka can be a part of a team and even, carry us in some instances over the line to get the big trophies this season, it'll be nothing more than he deserves, and then I think it'll be nothing more to say it in terms of questioning him about his world-class status. But again, overall for me, I'm gonna sort of conclude after saying all that. I'm gonna conclude by saying I think he's justified in earning the money that he's earning. carried us, from we were in the mud up until now. Um, the credit in the bank, the mileage is there. Such a young age to come in, the mentality to do it for us year in, year out, putting up numbers, big games, Champions Leagues now. His status now for England that's been over the years, showing up in big tournaments for them. There's not much more that he needs to prove. I think now just get the big trophies over the line for Arsenal and be a big part of that and contribute heavily, and get back to your form and fitness. I think, the question marks obviously around his fitness after the injuries is gonna be huge. Um, we're gonna have to wait and see. But again, I think I'm hoping he can overcome it, and I'm hoping he can stay fit to get us the trophies um, that we need for this club. And he's not, he's an Arsenal boy through and through. No one's gonna want it more to get this club over the line. So, um, if he does get us over the line and gets us those big trophies this season, I think. And not just this season, obviously going forward, right? He signed for another few years, but I mean, we're looking no further than this season. Get it done for us. It's been, a few years of coming up short. Get it done for us this season, and if you do, you're already gonna go some way in repaying the faith of justifying the 300K week contract. Um, but people, let me know what you think. Does he deserve it? Does he not? Will his injuries, massive injury that he had last year, continue to sort of stunt his growth and development as a player? Or do you think he'll come back just fine? Is he world class? Is he not world class? Let us know your thoughts. I mean, let me know your thoughts. You've heard me ramble on it for a while now. Um, I just wanted to kind of open discussion, talk about it, now that we can, that we're in a better mood when we're discussing his contract. But there's no doubt about the contract extension. We're happy about it nonetheless, because he is our boy through and through, and we have faith in him, and we have to back him, and we have to support him. So that being said, folks, drop your comments. Give us your thoughts. Give me your thoughts. Is he world class? Is he not? Does he deserve the 300K plus a week? Um, and um, and we'll make a discussion of it, and it's something we'll continue to see going forward, and keep continuing to talk about. I'll bring it up with the other guys in the podcast that we do going forward. We'll all have that discussion. And let's see what we do for the rest of the season, and what he does for the rest of the season. I'm so excited for the team and for him. Um, and for us fans, man, to enjoy this roller coaster ride, as Arteta says, we're still everything to fight for, everything to play for. And until the next one, we have Chelsea next in the Prem, and we roll on. So without further ado, as I always say, thanks for listening, thanks for being here. Continue to like, share, and subscribe, as it really, really does help us. Like, share, subscribe on the channel, our YouTube channel. Check out all our platforms and more content for you guys coming up. All right. Thanks, y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.